The OnePlus 8 Pro is OnePlus's best phone to date, offering an awesome display, top performance, and more. Of course, it's not the only great phone out there. The Google Pixel series has been gaining steam over the past few years as a great way to get that stock Android experience, fast updates, and an incredible camera. The OnePlus 8 Pro may be an awesome device, but it's also relatively expensive. At $900, it can no longer really be given the title of flagship killer. Instead, it's more of a flagship. So which phone should you go for? If you have access to both the Google Pixel 4 XL and the OnePlus 8 Pro, it's a tough choice. I put the two phones head to head to find out which is really the better option. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps support my work and I would appreciate that support. The first thing to notice about these phones is their design, and it's pretty different. Both phones look modern, but they take a pretty different approach to looking modern, and ultimately it's the OnePlus 8 Pro that wins the design category. The OnePlus 8 Pro has a huge edge-to-edge display with a hole punch cutout for the front-facing camera. It's a little different from the pop-up camera that was found in the OnePlus 7 Pro, but in the end, I think the hole punch approach is the better way to go, as it ensures there are no moving parts. The front of the Google Pixel 4 is pretty different from the OnePlus 8 Pro. Instead of offering an edge-to-edge display, the Pixel 4 XL has a relatively large forehead and chin. And while that forehead does house the device's Soli tech, it still ends up making the phone look pretty dated. The OnePlus phone has also adopted the curved edge approach found in some modded phones. And while it's a good look, OnePlus's palm detection isn't exactly the most advanced out there, and I regularly found myself accidentally pressing the display and controlling aspects of the software. On the back, things are a little different. The OnePlus phone has a vertically aligned camera bump, while the Pixel 4 XL has a square camera bump in the top left corner. The camera bump on the OnePlus 8 Pro is quite a bit thicker than the Pixel 4 XL, and as a result, it wobbles quite a bit on the desk when you press on the screen. The Pixel 4 XL wobbles a little too, but not nearly as much, and considering the fact that the camera module is on the right, it only wobbles when you touch one side of the display. The phones come in different colors too, and while I do really like the OnePlus's colors, I actually prefer the matte look of the white or orange Pixel phones. They're just a little more fun, and I think they feel better too. That said, ultimately, the OnePlus 8 Pro is the better designed phone. This largely has to do with the edge-to-edge display on the front of the phone, and I hope that Google finally adopts an edge-to-edge design for the Google Pixel 5. In the hand, both phones feel pretty good, but in my opinion, because the Pixel 4 XL is slightly shorter and because of its smooth matte finish, it feels a little nicer to hold. Again though, the glass back on the OnePlus phone helps give it a generally premium feel, and neither of these two phones feel cheap by any means. The display on the phones is a little different too, though not a lot different. The OnePlus 8 Pro offers a 6.78-inch AMOLED display with a 1440p resolution and a hefty 120Hz refresh rate. It's really the perfect display. Everything looks smooth, the display gets bright, and colors are vivid and deep. The Pixel 4 XL, on the other hand, offers a smaller 6.3-inch POLED display with a 1440p resolution and a 90Hz refresh rate, though that higher refresh rate only kicks in certain animations. In the end, the display on the OnePlus 8 Pro is better, but that on the Pixel is still very good. OnePlus's display can still get a little brighter, but again, the Pixel 4 XL's display still gets bright, and I don't think you'll be unhappy with either display. Both phones offer pretty good speakers for a smartphone, and they can both get pretty loud too. That said, I felt like the Pixel 4 XL's speakers offered a little more depth and detail. Here's a quick comparison of the speakers. Note that the actual audio quality will be different in real life considering the microphone I'm using and the speakers that you're listening on, but at least you might be able to get an idea of the difference between the two phones. Next up is performance, which is pretty different between these two phones, which makes sense. Unfortunately for Google, the Pixel release schedule means that its hardware is almost always out of date. While the Pixel 4 XL offers a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 with 6GB of RAM, the OnePlus 8 Pro offers a newer Snapdragon 865 with either 8GB or 12GB of RAM, and that does translate to a much better performance. Now, in day-to-day use, both phones perform perfectly well. Neither of the two devices stuttered at all, and they can both handle heavy multitasking multitasking and mobile gaming with ease. But the OnePlus 8 Pro does perform that extra bit better, and benchmarks confirm that. In both Geekbench 5 and Antutu, the OnePlus 8 Pro seriously outperformed the Pixel device, and as a result, if you're a really heavy user, then the OnePlus 8 Pro is probably worth going for. That's not just because it may perform slightly better now, but because that better performance means that it'll do better a few years down the line too. The battery capacity on the two phones is pretty different, but in my experience, you should still easily get through a full day of use, and even more with both phones. The OnePlus 8 Pro has a 4510 mAh battery capacity, while the Pixel 4 XL has a 3700 mAh battery. As a result, you should expect the OnePlus phone to last a little longer than the Pixel phone, but again, both should get you through a full day of use. Interestingly enough, in my battery test, which involves streaming a 1080p YouTube video at full brightness for 3 hours, both phones ended up with 73% of their battery left. That could be due to the fact that the OnePlus phone's display can get brighter and thus uses more battery at max brightness. Both phones support wireless charging, and the OnePlus 8 Pro supports OnePlus's new Warp wireless charge, though you have to use the OnePlus wireless charger to take advantage of that. Okay, so the OnePlus 8 Pro offers a better design, better performance, and better display than the Google Pixel 4 XL. But the camera is where things start to turn. OnePlus has actually stepped things up quite a bit for the OnePlus 8 Pro, and the device offers a great camera. But the Pixel series has long offered one of the best cameras in the smartphone business. Let's take a look at camera specs before anything else. The OnePlus 8 Pro offers a quad lens camera with a 48 megapixel main sensor, an 8 megapixel telephoto lens, a 48 megapixel ultra-wide lens, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. The Pixel 4 XL, on the other hand, only has a dual sensor camera, with a 12.2 megapixel main sensor and a 16 megapixel telephoto lens. Turns out, however, more lenses don't necessarily make for better photos. The Pixel 4 XL generally made for photos with higher contrast and more natural colors. In some settings, I found that the OnePlus 8 Pro captured more colorful photos, but while those colors look nice, they're a little less natural. The same is true of brightness. Some of the OnePlus 8 Pro photos looked brighter, which can be nice, but again, it's less natural and makes for less contrast. While camera quality could be down to personal preference and good lighting, in low light, the Pixel 4 XL is the clear winner. OnePlus's nightscape mode works fine, but it has a hard time with lights within low light shots, and it just doesn't take photos that look as good as the Pixel 4 XL. The Pixel also has Google's astrophotography mode, which makes for beautifully colorful photos in low light. Zoomed photos are always a bit hit and miss on a smartphone, but both of these phones offer some interesting features in that area. The OnePlus 8 Pro, for example, offers 3x optical zoom and up to a hefty 30x digital zoom, which makes for very grainy but very zoomed in photos. The Pixel 4 XL, however, offers only 2x optical zoom, but uses its super res zoom feature at up to 8x digital zoom. That makes for cleaner photos overall, despite the fact that it doesn't zoom in as far as the OnePlus 8 Pro. The effects of this can be clear when taking a photo at 8x with both phones, but again, some might prefer the fact that the OnePlus device can zoom in further. The front-facing camera on the Pixel 4 XL sits in at 8 megapixels, while the OnePlus 8 Pro has a 16 megapixel front-facing sensor. Both take decent selfies, but Google is able to take smarter portrait shots with better edge detection and again, more natural colors. Both phones can capture 4K video, but while the OnePlus 8 captures video at up to 60 frames per second, the Pixel 4 maxes out at 30. At 1080p, the Pixel 4 can capture video at 120 frames per second, while the OnePlus 8 Pro supports 240 frames per second. The cameras on these two phones boil down to this. The camera on the Google Pixel 4 XL is better, but the camera on the OnePlus 8 Pro is more versatile. Because of the ultra-wide lens, the ability to zoom further, and so on, the OnePlus device will be able to take good photos in a wider variety of situations. But when the Pixel 4 works, it really works, and photos are simply more natural and better overall. The software experience on these two phones is actually pretty similar, considering the fact that OnePlus's Oxygen OS is relatively stripped back. Oxygen OS on the OnePlus 8 Pro is even better than usual, thanks to the fact that OnePlus has finally replaced the OnePlus shelf with the Google feed. Oxygen OS also has a few extra features that some might like. For example, it has OnePlus's parallel apps feature, which allows you to have two instances of the same app installed, but logged into different accounts. For me, a big part of software is getting timely updates, as I like to get new features as soon as they're available. OnePlus has been pretty good at adopting new versions of Android recently, but with the Pixel series, there's a guarantee that you'll get new versions as soon as they're available. I wouldn't say that one of these software experiences is much better than the other. I generally prefer a completely stock experience, including Google stock apps and so on. But at this point, Oxygen OS is still close to stock, and as mentioned, some might like the optimizations on offer. For a full comparison of Oxygen OS and stock Android, check out the video linked in the description. The OnePlus 8 Pro and the Google Pixel 4 XL both offer some interesting features that might put one ahead of the other for some users. For example, the OnePlus 8 Pro supports low-band 5G, which ensures that it'll be ready for the next generation network when it's available. The 8 Pro also has an in-display fingerprint sensor, and while the sensor isn't as fast as an optical sensor, it still works pretty well. Speaking of biometrics, the Pixel 4 XL offers facial recognition tech, and it's fast and responsive. Also in that forehead is Google's Soli tech, which allows users to use air-based gestures for things like changing songs. It's not that useful, and I don't think many will fully take advantage of it, but it's still there. So which device is better, the OnePlus 8 Pro or the Google Pixel 4 XL? Well, when it really comes down to it, the OnePlus 8 Pro is probably the better phone, thanks to its fast performance, modern design, and more. You'll get a better camera and arguably a smoother software experience in the Pixel 4 XL. But if you don't mind spending the extra money, then the OnePlus 8 Pro is an amazing device. Thanks so much for watching this video, and again, please subscribe to the channel if you liked it. My name is Christian, and I'll see you next time. See ya.